Bill's on the
Is
phone.
Bill on?
Yes.
Oh, yes, I'm here.
Okay. Okay, then. Whoop, you okay? All right. All right, calling the meeting to order. The time is 2:02 PM. Today is Tuesday, April 21st, 2020. And I'm going to ask Dena if she would please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So attending by phone is Commissioner Bill Brooks, in person Commissioners Duncan and Filios. Do we have any, okay, moving on to the consent calendar.
I move we approve the consent calendar as listed on our April 21st, 2020 business meeting agenda.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks,
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan,
Aye.
Chairman Williams.
Aye, and the motion is carried. Proceeding to the payables list.
I move that we approve the payables list for the week of April 13th through 17th, 2020, in the amount of $744,132.92.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks,
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan,
Aye.
Chairman Williams.
Aye, motion carried. Do we have any changes to the agenda? Hearing none, moving on to our first action item. Item number 1, contract for marine support services for the Harrison Breakwater Installation Agreement with North Idaho Maritime Parks and Waterways. Nick Snyder, please.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is indeed a contract with North Idaho Maritime, essentially for marine support services for the installation of the breakwater in the amount of $135,070, none of which are derived from general fund dollars. It's a combination of grant dollars and user fees.
Grant and user, okay. Any questions for Director Snyder? Motion.
I move that we approve the contract for marine support services and the Harrison Breakwater installation with North Idaho Maritime in the amount of $135,070.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks,
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan,
Aye.
Chairman Williams.
Aye. Excuse me, and the motion is carried. Item number 2, authorization for repair for the catastrophic failure to our workboat, Parks and Waterways. Director Nick Snyder again.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Nick Snyder for the record. I signed the board amendment on April 14th, referencing a starboard outdrive that we lost. The outdrive is 10 years old, so we got a good amount of time out of it. However, it's a failure. We need it repaired. There is fund balance available in our vessel account, which I've made sure I ran through Dena. Dena can speak to that. But funds are available. We need to get it repaired right away so we can start servicing our
Okay.
facilities.
And I see Finance Director Dena Darrow's nodding. We're okay? Thank you, Dena. Motion.
I move that we authorize the repair for the catastrophic failure of the outdrive on the workboat.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks,
Bill?
People have to speak up. It's,
I'm
not
sorry.
coming through.
Bill Brooks,
We're looking for your aye if you agree.
Oh, I agree, but I'd like to hear what I'm agreeing to.
Okay, there was a motion to authorize the $20,000 for the repair of the catastrophic failure of the Parks and Waterways outdrive.
Yeah, that's what I figured, item 2, but I can't, when Nick was talking, I can't hear Nick at all. But yes, I agree.
Okay, fair enough, thanks.
Okay.
Commissioner Duncan,
Aye.
Chairman Williams.
Aye, and the motion is carried. Okay. Item number 3, request additional funding for the evidence building for our Kootenai County Sheriff's Organization. Would that be Shawn Riley?
I think Dan Mattos was gonna take this one. They asked to put it on. So I think it's coming more from the command staff. I can take it if they want me to.
Actually, Kim Edmondson's got all the paperwork. She's going to pitch it. Here she is right now. I'm around for moral support.
Okay. Don't leave.
So, we had Commissioners Kim Edmondson for the record. We had a walkthrough done for the Kootenai County Vehicle Evidence Processing Building, and the estimate of the probable cost came out to $630,000. It's we had $76,000 earmarked for the project, so it looks like we have a bit of a shortfall, and that's what we wanted to speak to and see if we could have Shawn's assistance on, because the project does need a little bit more money to be able to accommodate the necessary changes. I think probably two of the bigger things are the sewer connection that came up that must be done in the restroom addition, because we'll need a restroom out in that area.
Shawn, did you want to comment?
Yeah, originally we had set this up to get Longwell Trap on board with us to get a cost estimate for the next fiscal year so that we could budget for this. That was the original intent. They've decided they want to ask for it now. That's up to them. Keep in mind that it's an estimate of probable cost, and it seems lately that pole barns, for some reason, keep coming in over what we thought. But, Corey did his best guess on this. The other thing is, if it gets approved, honestly, I probably couldn't get it started until mid to late summer at the earliest. You're looking at probably mid-June before the plans are done. Then you've got your bidding process and the contract and all that other stuff that we have to go through. That's just my thoughts on it.
Okay.
Commissioner Dan Mattos for the record.
Go ahead, Dan.
Shawn and I have talked about this earlier, and if the board would be more comfortable with this and they would give us some sort of an assurance, we would not object to just letting that go into fiscal year 21. It's $28,000. I thought that would be fair at least to make that offer.
Dena, did you want to jump in?
I just wanted to talk about the funding. So right now in the sheriff's evidence storage account in Fund 11, we have rolled forward, right now there's $26,167 in there. There is $50,000 sitting in assigned fund balance. It is not in the budget. So those two amounts together are the $76,000 that's being discussed. So I just wanted to clarify that the $50,000 is not actually in the budget. It's sitting in assigned fund balance earmarked for the sheriff's evidence storage project.
Okay.
So if this were to be added to the FY21 budget, then we would want to pull that $50,000 plus other Additional fund balance or 25. other funding sources to cover Yeah. the shortfall for the full project, and then we would roll forward the $26,000 into the next fiscal year to help fund that as well.
Sure.
So Dan, to your point, I am not interested in approving anything outside of the budget at this point because we're just starting our budget talks in the next couple weeks. So if you want to bring it forward for FY21, I can't personally guarantee anything because I haven't seen all the numbers, all the asks and all that. But we do have that $50,000 in assigned already. So it's definitely a talking point, but that's kind of where I'm sitting right now.
So, Leslie and Bill and Chris, we were told that by, I think, the last board, or maybe even the one before that, probably the last board, that they were going to build this pole barn for us. And then through a series of mechanisms, we were able to build the pole barn at the 911 facility, thus opening up the pole barn that exists now, which was a great move. In the end, it saved the county a ton of money because of the way we did it. And with that said, we're $28,000 short to get it done now. I mean, I think we're trying to be reasonable to say we're willing to wait till next budget year, but we do have a need for the building, and I can tell you right now, there's 2 Idaho State Police cars out there that were involved in a shooting and a pursuit that they're processing outdoors because they don't have the right facility to do it. So it is a need, it's not fluffy. And so, you know, I just want to impress on the board that it is a need. And again, I would hope that you guys would be willing to do something about that sooner than later.
Understood. Bill, any thoughts?
I would rather see the 2021
Okay.
budget right now, because we don't know what's gonna happen here with everything.
Okay, Shawn, when did you figure you would begin work? Were you thinking in the summer?
Well, if you
At the
approved it now, it would be probably mid to late summer. These are the kind of projects that contractors love because it's indoor work. And so the best time to put them out for bid is October or November. But on a side note, I do agree with the undersheriff that, you know, this needs to happen. If we're relying on somebody else for our business, that's probably never a good thing because they can always just say, we don't have any room for you. And I was present at the meetings when they were told that we would make this happen. So, you know, I'm a champion for doing it. I understand it's not budgeted right now, and I think that's not a bad thing because I think, you know, if we go into October, November, and we put this out to bid, we're going to get a better price.
Okay, so I guess I'm a little confused with what you're saying, because if we go into October, November, now we're going into fiscal '21.
That's what everybody's agreeing to. Shawn says it's a good idea, Dan says it's a good idea, and Bill wants it in '21. And I
Okay.
agree.
Right.
Okay,
Except Leslie, you won't commit to it.
no, that's what he's concerned about.
Yes,
Right.
well, and I don't, you know me, Dan, come on. I'm reasonable. I'll take a look at this. I know it was already promised, but you're asking me to commit to something when I haven't seen anything. And the fact is, I mean, did they commit to the $50,000 and now it's twice as much money? So, you know, those are the discussions we'll have.
I think they committed, the prior boards, and Shawn can correct me, they committed to a whole lot more than that.
Because they took part of it from the jail expansion.
Yeah. Yeah, that was part of the jail expansion, and it would have cost a lot more money than what we're asking for, just for the record.
Sure.
Dan's right on that. There was a lot more money that originally was set aside. There was conversation about taking some fair property behind the maintenance building, and there was a lot of back and forth on this. And I think after the meeting and with what they need, I think it's reasonable, and I would agree that they need to have it. I just think right now, if we throw this thing to the architect and put it out to bid, it might come in a little higher than what it looks like. Like I said, it's inside work. It's all inside the building, and that is what the contractors are looking for, when their season outdoors starts to wind down.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm not disagreeing with the project at all. I'm just saying when it comes forward in the budget season, I will look at it as I look at everything else.
With Kim Edmondson again, Shawn, would there be any sense into trying to accomplish the sewer connection and the concrete aprons and the excavation work? That total came to $7,200, at least maybe in the summertime, out of this stuff that we do know we have set aside. And then in the fall, we can work towards those other items that would be the indoor work that could be done in the late fall or winter.
Well, the additional expense, Kim, would be the architecture work, because that all has to be surveyed and elevations and all that kind of stuff. So really, you're kind of getting yourself to a point where you just need to have everything done by the architect ahead of time. And then, you still have to get it out to bid, because you'd have to have a contractor that would agree to do just a partial part of the work in August and then come back in October, November and do the rest. And you still have to put it out to bid.
Okay, so, all right, this is Chris. I don't have a problem with it. If we made a commitment, we need to keep that commitment. Certainly, this isn't going to break the budget, be it this year or next. So I'm in favor of it. I think I'm outvoted, though, from what I hear. and I'll certainly lobby for it. Is there anything, Shawn, that we can do to begin, outside of the additional $28,000, is there anything that we can do this year? Or is it back to what you're saying earlier, that we actually need to spend the money on the architect first, which probably only makes sense?
Yeah, we would have to get the architect involved. That's $10,410 that would need to be spent. It probably would work if we got the architect started. It sounds like there's enough money left to get the architect started, but the rest of the project, you know, that's just going to depend on how the bids come in.
Yeah, and if there's not final approval on the project, why would we proceed with the architect, right? It wouldn't make any sense, so, go ahead.
Exactly, because you would be committing to getting the design done, and then you don't have the money, because, you know, I don't know, legal could weigh in, but I think you can't put it out to bid until you're actually budgeted.
When would we have a good idea what we're looking at, Dena, so we can make a decision?
We will have our first meeting of consolidated budget on May 1st.
Okay, so that's less than 2 weeks away.
Right, we're looking at consolidating now.
Okay, so question for Leslie and Bill, do you think you'd have enough insight at that point that we could make a decision?
No?
I would at that point.
So would I, moving forward. Okay? All right, let's move on to item 4. Memorandum of Understanding, which is an MOU for emergency use, North Idaho College Residence Hall, Office of Emergency Management.
Tiffany Westbrook for the record. This is simply an MOU between the county and NIC to utilize their facility if there is a need during an emergency situation.
Tiffany, how many years have we been, have this agreement?
We haven't. This one's brand new. This is not a renewal. This one was just made up.
Oh, okay, great.
Okay, any questions? Motion?
I move that we approve the memorandum of understanding for the emergency use of North Idaho College Residence Hall with the Office of Emergency Management.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks,
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan,
Aye.
Aye, and motion is carried. Item number 5, award for Federal Transit Administration or from the FTA for grant agreement ID 2020-002-00 for Public Transportation Resource Management Office. Kim Riley?
Yes, good afternoon. Kim Riley for the record. We came before the board on November 25th seeking authorization to apply for these funds. This is our 5307 annual apportionment, and this specific award is for preventive maintenance. The amount is $115,000 in federal funds with $28,750, which would be an in-kind match.
Okay, so where does the $28,750 come from? In kind, so as in labor?
That's
Got it.
correct. In any of the funding that we track, that's the in-kind expenses, and our labor would definitely be an example of that.
Understood. Questions?
Nope.
Motion?
I move that we approve the award of the FTA grant agreement ID number 2020-002-00 for public transportation.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks,
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan,
Aye.
Chairman Williams.
Aye. Motion carried. Item number 6, service agreement with Verizon Information Technology. James Martin.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is a request that we sign a service agreement with Verizon for continued use of our 3 toll-free phone numbers that we use. We've used them well over 10 years. This is required or precipitated by the need when Verizon bought XO Communications. So in order to continue to use it, we're having to redo some of our agreements with them. And this would fall in that category. There's no extra cost. It's already bundled within our phone package that we pay on a monthly basis.
Okay. Questions? Motion.
I move that we approve the service agreement with Verizon for our toll-free numbers.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks,
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan,
Aye.
Chairman Williams.
Aye, and the motion is carried. Item number 7, approval for workers' compensation policy, Idaho State Fair, HR. Sylvia?
It's actually me, for the record,
Cecilia.
Oh,
Cecilia,
Cecilia, okay.
Generalist. And so some of the background on this is when the North Idaho State Fair had applied for the business license for the RV park in the name of North Idaho State Fair, the Idaho Industrial Commission noted that there was no workers' comp insurance in that name. And so basically, we've been covering the fairgrounds employees, but they said that for compliance purposes, we have to have a separate policy in the name of North Idaho State Fair, since they're under a different VIN number and payroll. And so we are asking for your approval to go ahead and do a separate policy in that name for their employees.
And what's the cost on this? Is it,
Actually, it will be separated out, and so I don't know what the budgetary impact will be for those additional employees. They have been covered under our policy, so this is just bringing it into compliance. Will there be an additional charge? There could be, because it's two separate policies, but we don't know that.
but is it covering the exact same people?
So they've been covered as a department of Kootenai County. So in essence, their employees haven't been in our numbers, but every time there's a new employee, they're automatically covered. So it's just kind of been under the radar. And so, again, I don't know what that budgetary impact will be until we actually separate them out into their own policy.
Dena, did you want to jump in here?
Yeah, I seem to remember this.
Louder, sorry.
Payroll remits the workers' comp on behalf of the fair in the regular payroll process. So I don't know if there's a check sent from the fair to our payroll and then that money is remitted, or how that happens. Cecilia, this is Dena. Have you talked to payroll about their current process?
I don't think she can hear.
Okay.
Cecilia,
Yes.
Dena, Darrow would like to know if you have talked to payroll about their current process. And then Alexcia, maybe you can answer afterwards. Is this something that the fair reimburses the county for? Or is this just something we cover?
So a couple things. So every year we have to give our numbers, and there could be an increase because their numbers really haven't been reported, because when they've asked for, how many
I'm sorry,
part-time
Cecilia,
employees,
hold
how
on.
many-
Cecilia, I'm sorry. Somebody in the background has their TV on. Can you just mute your phone until it's your turn?
Yeah.
It's super hard to hear.
Please, if you're not speaking, please mute your phone. It makes it almost impossible.
There you go,
Yeah.
that's better.
Thank you. All right,
Okay,
sorry,
thanks.
There we
Cecilia.
go. Thank you.
Oh, that's okay. And so, in essence, their numbers haven't been specifically counted because they're not under our payroll. But they were
I'm not sure about
part
that.
of, we have an organizational number. And so the Idaho State Insurance Fund has always been aware of the fairground employees, and if there was a work-related injury, they've always been covered. So until they applied for the business license, in that name, North Idaho State Fair, it's always been under the radar. They've always been covered, but they said that to bring it into compliance, since they operate under a different tax ID number, a different payroll, that the policy there should be a separate policy that says North Idaho State Fair. And when we ran it through legal, their recommendation was that it should be under the Kootenai County, but under, with a separated out payroll, that we should.
Excuse me. This is Bill Brooks. I understand all that. The bottom line is, what's the bottom line here in terms of money? And if we don't have a bottom line, I don't feel comfortable voting on it.
Right, so is this a time-sensitive issue, Cecilia, or can it be brought back next week with more information?
It's a very time-sensitive issue. They gave us 14 days to correct this, and so it's very time-sensitive.
How about?
And when does the 14 days run from to?
So as of Friday, they said we had 14 days.
Okay, so then let's wrap it up. Okay, so let's wrap it up then next week, and we're still within the 14-day time frame.
Yep.
Okay.
I can get with payroll.
Okay.
And coordinate and clarify, and then my thought is that Alexcia will need to remit directly to workers' comp rather than remitting to us and then us remitting to workers' comp.
Okay.
So we'll get that ironed out and have it clarified for next week.
Okay, so Alexcia, Dena will be in contact with you, and we'll get all this straightened out so we can approve it next week.
Got it?
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, item 8, consent to assignment of agreement, CDA Jet Center for the airport. Stephen?
Yep, Stephen Kjergaard for the record. Both actually 8 and 9 are the same thing. CDA Jet Center changed their legal name through the state of Idaho, and because of that, we had to do a lease assignment for both the agreement for solving the Part 13 complaint and then all of their leases as well, which is why they are all listed there. Great.
Okay, so you're saying we can combine 8 and 9 into a single motion?
I do not. You'd have to ask legal on that one, but they're all. The reason for both of them, or all this is on there, is this is why.
Okay, because if I look at item 8, we're signing the agreement, and then 9 specifies the specific leases. Dave, Ferguson, do you want to weigh in here, please?
Sure. If you go ahead and make it clear in the motion what you're doing, you can combine the motions. That's not a problem.
Okay, fair enough.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay,
Sure.
Okay, motion?
I move that we approve the consent to assignment of agreement with CDA Jet Center and consent to assignment of leases for lease numbers AAL 2019-3008, 310, 320, 330, 340, and this is with CDA Jet Center.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks,
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan,
Aye.
Chairman Philios.
Aye, and the motion is carried. Item 10, quitclaim deed, Park and Walkways, Block 3 of McGuire Estates, AIN 335534, per Resolution 2020-08, Community Development, Director Dave Callahan.
Commissioners, David Callahan, Community Development. You had asked previously to know that the bidders were adjacent to the park and for Pat to review and approve and write up the quitclaim deed. Both of those things have been done. You have seen evidence of such in your email. So I believe this is properly before you for your consideration.
Any questions?
Oh.
Motion.
I move that we approve resolution number 2020-08 and that we execute the quitclaim deed for Block 3 of McGuire Estates AIN 335534.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks,
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan,
Aye.
Chairman Philios.
Aye, and the motion is carried. Item number 11, proclamation National Crime Victims' Rights Week, which is April 19th to the 25th. That's our current week of 2020. And so we're being asked to affirm with a resolution that we're in support of the National Crime Victims' Rights Week. And the resolution is before us. Leslie, would you read it, please?
Sure. Sorry, just have to make it big enough to see. All right, proclamation, National Crime Victims' Rights Week, April 19th through the 25th, 2020. Whereas the victims' rights movement has resulted in the passage of laws at the local, state, and federal levels that established essential rights for victims, whereas Crimes Victims' Rights Act passed here in Idaho and at the federal level have provided victims with ways to participate meaningfully throughout the criminal justice process, whereas the rights of crime victims are best protected when all participants in the criminal justice process, not only the victim, are appropriately educated about victims' rights, whereas supporting victims of crime is crucial to the U.S. justice system because our support honors the experiences of victims and allows them to find autonomy and empowerment through achieving self-defined goals. Whereas advocacy by and for victims of crime itself is a form of seeking justice, no less than justice sought in the courts. Whereas the accomplishments of victims' rights movement achieved through compassion and collaboration and built on the courageous advocacy of individual victims and their families across the country inspire in us hope for the future progress and greater healing. Whereas we are determined to respond to crime and violence by helping victims find not only support, recovery, and justice, but also a sense of hope for their future. National Crimes Victims' Rights Week provides an opportunity to recommit to ensuring that accessible, appropriate, and trauma-informed services are offered to all victims of crime, and whereas Kootenai County is hereby dedicated to strengthening victims and survivors in the aftermath of crime, building resilience in our communities and our victim service providers, and bringing hope and healing to all victims and survivors. Now, therefore, we as Kootenai County Commissioners do hereby proclaim the week of April 19th through the 25th, 2020 as Crime Victims' Rights Week, reaffirming the county's commitment to creating a victim service and criminal justice response that assists all victims of crime during Crime Victims' Rights Week and throughout the year, and expressing our sincere gratitude and appreciation for those community members, victim service providers, and criminal justice professionals who are committed to improving our response to all victims of crime so that they may find relevant assistance, support, justice, and peace. Dated this 21st day of April 2020.
Okay, any comments? Motion?
I move that we approve the National Crime Victims' Rights Week proclamation for April 19th through the 25th, 2020.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks,
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan,
Aye.
Chairman Philios.
Aye, with the exception that we do have a couple of typographical errors, and I'll cite those later, and we can make the correction, otherwise we're fine. Excuse me? Oh, it is fixed?
She's got the
Okay.
fixed copy.
Thank you, okay, appreciate that. So the vote for me is aye, and the motion is carried. Thank you. Okay, final item for action, petitions for annexation, Field and Ryan, Cozad, Jacobson, Hendricks, Smith, East Side Fire District. Would this be
Dave?
Dave? Ferguson?
Yes, Commissioners, Dave Ferguson. you have my written legal opinion, but for the record, I did review the applications, and these properties were approved by the East Side Fire Protection District for annexation. And all the properties do meet the standards for annexation. So I recommend that the board go ahead and approve annexation for these various parcels.
Any discussion? Motion.
I move that we approve the petitions for annexation for Field and Ryan, Cozad, Jacobson, Hendricks, Smith, for East Side Highway District.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks,
Commissioner,
Yeah, go right ahead, Dave.
the motion, yeah, you said a highway district, and it's the fire protection district.
I apologize.
So
East
can
Side.
you amend the motion?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Can I
sure.
just start over?
Yes, please.
I move that we approve the petitions for annexation into the East Side Fire District for Field and Ryan, Cozad, Jacobson, Hendricks, and Smith.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks,
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan,
Aye.
Aye, and the motion is carried. Public comment. Hearing none. 2:38, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe.